where the NCAA is in terms of their investigation of the University of Michigan. So, we're asking on the Stadium app today, do you still care about the investigation, about the allegations against that university in Ann Arbor? You can vote on that. But guys on the Bucknuts message boards, of course, are losing hope. When do you think it would be a realistic timeline, or a timeline do you think it exists for when we'll hear about this?
Well, you can just look at the NCAA has never moved swiftly, right? Like they've never been in urgent mindset to make decisions. I feel like they've historically been slow when it comes to these kind of things. But I will say this, if I was a Michigan fan, I would be very cautious because the NCAA is acting almost like a wounded animal out in the wild, right? Like they're on their very last leg bleeding out, and they're just lashing out at anything to try to seize any type of power and control they have. It feels like they're an emotional child right now, and anything's on the table. Could the NCAA try to punish and make an example of Michigan? Maybe. But then again, to our points, the conversations we've had, a lot of the guys that they would have loved to have a conversation with have seemed to move on to the NFL now too. And it's like, why would I sit down with you, the NCAA?
Yeah, I think it's an intriguing thing. I think the NCAA certainly feels like it's wounded. Maybe they want to make a statement. I think that they're just trying to figure out how the hell they're going to survive. I mean, litigation up to their eyeballs. Nobody has confidence in them. And their ability to actually enforce their rules right now is miserable because of what's going on in the overall landscape with NIL violations and tampering, the transfer portal, all these different things that they have to deal with. I'm not exactly sure that this is priority number one. We have a producer here, too. His name is Mark Carmen. He's a big Michigan fan. He said this to me during the season, and I started to believe it the more and more I thought about it, is the best thing for Michigan would be to win the national title because it's really difficult to try to invalidate the champion of one of the biggest sports out there by saying that they cheated all year long. Do they just kind of slow play this and see what the public reaction is like and then maybe slap them on the wrist down the line? I'm not exactly sure, but I think that would help them in terms of maintaining this championship. And quite frankly, it'll help them move past this so they can worry about all the other stuff they have on their plate. People in Columbus will be pissed about it, but it is what it is.
I would feel the majority of people, I personally think that'd be extremely unreasonable to have them try to vacate that championship.
I don't think vacating the championship was ever the solution.
Right? Like that just feels.
But they might be 9-0 champs instead of 15-0.
Okay. Michigan fans will take that anyways, right?
Well, no,
like at this point.
But then you can't say we're the 15-0. You can't say that anymore. There'd be a lot of people deleting tweets.
You can.
There'd be a lot of people deleting tweets.
You can, but it may not be fully factual.